The stars shimmered above Earth like indifferent witnesses as the Galactic Empire's flagship eclipsed the moon. Without warning, a signal cut through every frequency on the planet. Television screens, phones, even outdated radios flickered to life. The image was uncomfortably clear, a throne of bone metal, backlit by the burning glow of a neutron sun, and seated upon it, a being who exuded contempt like radiation. General Vorthax, supreme enforcer of the 7th Imperial Vector, stared down into the lens with eyes like molten amber, voice dripping with condescension. "Primitive denizens of Sol 3, he began. "You now stand within the sovereign reach of the Galactic Empire. Your atmosphere, your minerals, your labor, all now subject to tribute as decreed by Imperial Edict 883X. Resistance will be interpreted as a declaration of hostility. You have one Earth rotation to comply." The broadcast continued, cycling through lists of demands. All planetary governments were to dissolve their militaries, surrender 60% of global resources, and deliver 10 million genetically viable humans for integration into the Empire's stability workforce. The transmission concluded with footage of a distant planet, scorched and lifeless, its continents melted into glass after failing to comply. There was no bluster. Just facts. And the chilling certainty that they'd done it before. Around the world, silence took hold. Panic erupted in some regions, with emergency sessions convened in parliaments and bunkers. Some leaders proposed token tribute or delay tactics. Others urged negotiation, believing that perhaps humanity could buy time. The Vatican issued a prayer. The UN called for unity. China activated internal defense protocols. Russia went dark. In Washington, D.C., the Situation Room didn't shake. The president listened quietly, flanked by hardened generals and intelligence directors. The air was dense with calculation, not fear. When the message ended, the lights dimmed slightly as encrypted satellites automatically relayed footage to command subnodes buried beneath the Rockies. No one spoke for a moment. Then a 3-star general simply said, "Send the file." A nondescript man in the corner opened a secured briefcase. Inside, a sealed folder with no insignia. He slid it across the table. The label was handwritten in black ink, Boogeyman Protocol. No one needed to read the contents. They already knew. The president nodded once. Authorization granted. Beneath the Pentagon, biometric locks hissed open. In a cold room that hadn't seen sunlight in decades, a man who technically didn't exist stood up. He wore no insignia, carried no ID. His name wasn't spoken. But his record was clear. When the impossible needed doing, he was dispatched. No medals. No ceremonies. Just results. One mission, one message. While world leaders scrambled for diplomatic lifelines, the American response diverged completely. No press conferences. No pleas. No attempts to understand the invaders' culture. Their arrogance had written their fate. They didn't come to negotiate, they came to dominate. And Earth had done this dance before. From deserts to jungles, from icy cliffs to hellish cities, humanity had learned one unshakable truth. When someone stronger arrives with demands, you don't beg, you make them regret. General Vorthax reviewed the responses as they arrived, some panicked, others deferential. Then he saw the American reply. There wasn't one. No communication. No visible mobilization. Just silence. He interpreted it as disorganization, perhaps even surrender. He chuckled. They collapsed without even a strike. But aboard his fleet, minor anomalies began to surface. Surveillance probes flickered. 2 maintenance drones disappeared during routine patrols. A junior officer failed to report. Minor issues, easily ignored. Back on Earth, deep within classified corridors, former operatives were activated. Men and women whose names weren't on any database. They weren't just soldiers, they were instruments. Each selected for their adaptability, brutality, and ability to function in environments where morality was optional. Vorthax gave one more warning broadcast. You now have 16 Earth hours to comply. Refusal will be answered with annihilation. The video ran across every major channel, towering alien warships forming a blockade, glistening with plasma cannons. Cities under their gaze looked like ancient villages facing gods. Humanity had never seemed so small. But something stirred in that silence. Not fear. Not surrender. Resolve. In a secure room beneath NORAD, one more order was given. No press. No pressurization. Deploy him. And with that, the man known only by a codename stepped into a black dropship. No escort. No flag. Just a mission. The Empire didn't know it yet. But they'd made a mistake. The ship breached lunar orbit in complete silence, its surface coated in adaptive stealth polymers that bent light and emissions alike. It carried no call sign, no visible markings. Inside sat the man known in whispers and redacted files as John. No surname, no rank. He existed off the books, trained in a doctrine never acknowledged, designed for scenarios deemed impossible. This wasn't a soldier, it was a solution. The Boogeyman protocol had been theorized decades ago, after humanity first intercepted signals suggesting intelligent life might not be benevolent. The program was buried under layers of disinformation, funded through black budgets, and overseen by a coalition of intelligence communities who didn't care about treaties or borders. John had been selected young, not for patriotism, but for cold utility. Every test measured how far he'd go without breaking. He never did. Now he was airborne again, activated not as a gesture, but as a sentence. In orbit, the Empire continued its slow tightening around Earth. Vorthax issued new warnings, frustrated by the lack of formal reply from American command. His analysts assured him that Earth's weaponry was negligible. Thermal scans confirmed scattered military deployments, none large enough to concern them. It was, by his estimation, over before it began. The first breach came in subtle. An auxiliary vessel on the Empire's lower perimeter failed to report in. No explosion. No alarm. It simply vanished. The second was found adrift, interior lights flickering, crew unresponsive, emergency beacon transmitting static. Inside, walls were marked with crude red symbols, glyphs in no known language. A single phrase, painted across the command console in human English, "We see you." Vorthax dismissed it as sabotage by lower castes. He ordered fleet-wide status checks, but the system lagged. Artificial intelligence networks responsible for internal diagnostics began stalling. Files corrupted, logs wiped. Each time they tried to trace the interference, they encountered only fragmented code strings ending in J0HN. Down on Earth, the mission expanded. John wasn't alone. Dozens of Black Cell operatives activated in synchrony, embedded across major cities, satellite uplinks, orbital platforms. They weren't launching nukes. They were feeding misinformation, splicing alien comms, collapsing their sense of internal order. The Empire, built on hierarchical precision, began to fragment. Orders misrouted. Patrols doubled back. Officers barked commands that were never received. Subsystems shut down as viruses disguised as harmless telemetry corrupted everything they touched. On board one of the mid-tier destroyers, an alien second lieutenant investigated a series of temperature drops in maintenance corridors. The footage later recovered showed a tall human figure in gray exoarmor standing behind him. No words. One motion. The alien's body dropped before his brain finished registering fear. The psychological war intensified. Loudspeakers activated without cause. Ship-wide alerts blared phantom warnings. A maintenance drone replayed distorted recordings of a child laughing, looping in frequencies known to induce anxiety in the alien brain. Fear crept in. Vorthax demanded answers. His command staff gave him only speculation, perhaps a new Earth technology, some cloaked drone, or even sabotage from within. But none of it explained the calculated precision, the way it all unraveled silently, step by step, as if someone was playing a game they'd mastered long ago. Then came the message. Not through hailing frequencies. Not via diplomatic channel. It arrived in Vorthax's personal command chair, encoded in a format predating human radio. A simple transmission carved into metal, left on his private balcony without tripping a single sensor. "We're not negotiating. You declare dominance. We'll show you what that costs." John signed nothing. The message bore no name. But Vorthax knew who sent it. Morale dropped across the fleet. Crews doubled their patrols, avoided dark corners, reported shadows. An elite empire, spanning thousands of worlds, found itself haunted by one species it had dismissed as uncultured. John never aimed to destroy the fleet with missiles. That wasn't the mission. The goal was rot, from within. Make the mighty unsure. Make the certain hesitate. Make every corridor feel a little colder. Every silence seem deliberate. And it worked. The Boogeyman wasn't coming. He was already here. The Empire's fleet, once a symbol of unchallenged dominance, now moved like a wounded animal, cautious, slow, scanning shadows instead of surveying targets. Every corridor was double-checked. Every locked door was triple-verified. Officers stopped sleeping in shifts, afraid that dreams would no longer be the scariest thing in the dark. Humanity had done nothing conventional. No grand battle, no visible armies. And yet, entire systems within the invasion fleet failed. Power surges triggered false alarms. Environmental controls flickered without warning. Food processors dispensed metal shavings. Every attempt at recalibration only deepened the disarray. Engineers were replaced. Then those replacements vanished. On one vessel, the crew awoke to find their commanding officer strung from the ceiling, intact but unconscious, with a small human-made device lodged in his throat. It wasn't a weapon. It was a recorder playing his own voice admitting weakness in a distorted loop. A captured soldier from an earlier human raid had confessed under duress that Americans trained individuals specifically for this. One-man operations designed not to fight head-on but to unmake order from within. The interrogators scoffed. The Empire had faced resistance before, rebels, insurgents, even planetary militias. But none had left fleets paralyzed by suggestion alone. Empire war doctrine relied on domination, spectacle, and overwhelming response. But those tools meant nothing when the enemy avoided every direct engagement. Vorthax authorized full battlefield simulation drills inside the ships to restore morale. The first drill ended in chaos after an officer mistakenly fired at a reflection he believed was the human. A surveillance drone retrieved partial footage from one incident. A lone figure, face obscured, walking calmly through a smoking bridge. No alarm had sounded. No breach recorded. Every camera on the deck failed simultaneously 5 minutes before and resumed only after he vanished. The crew was gone. Not dead, missing. No blood. No struggle. Just an empty command center and a message carved into the wall with what appeared to be a carbon blade. Asterisk. You made a mistake coming here. Asterisk. Alien technicians tried purging the system. Each time, the network resisted. On-board AI began questioning its own readings. When logic circuits flagged inconsistencies, they identified them as human-created interference, subtle, layered, deliberate. Every loop left just enough doubt to make even machines question what was real. On Earth, John and his unit weren't celebrating. They didn't see the unraveling of the fleet as victory. It was preparation. Fear wasn't the end goal. It was the tool. The actual strike hadn't begun. Not yet. Allied intelligence confirmed Empire communications had been severed between mid-fleet and high command. Entire segments no longer trusted their uplinks. Some captains issued standing orders to fire on anything not visually confirmed, even their own ships if necessary. Paranoia, perfectly planted. In a classified transmission intercepted from within the Empire's command bridge, a junior strategist reported hearing human voices inside the walls. Audio logs later confirmed no one was present. The voice had said only one thing. Asterisk. Your prey now. Asterisk. The shift was irreversible. The mighty weren't feared. The humans were. Vorthax, once proud and unwavering, changed demeanor. He stopped delivering ultimatums. His broadcasts disappeared. No more demands. He held daily war councils with fewer and fewer officers. Trust collapsed. Internal surveillance increased, not on enemies, but on each other. Back on Earth, reports from across the globe confirmed the Boogeyman effect had transcended borders. Other nations, watching silently, started rethinking their own responses. A Russian general, in an intercepted conversation, remarked, "They didn't win by fighting. They made the war too terrifying to finish." That realization hit the Empire hardest. They expected retaliation. They got precision terror. What made it worse, what made it stick, was that John never took credit. No signature. No claim. Every action, every disruption, was left open-ended. Was it sabotage? Was it madness? Were there hundreds like him, or only one? It didn't matter. The Empire no longer operated with confidence. They moved with dread. Word of the fleet's unraveling reached the Galactic Council within days, and disbelief met every report. A force measured in thousands of warships, engineered for conquest, was faltering against a species not even recognized in the upper tiers of galactic classification. For generations, Earth had been seen as background noise, primitive broadcasts, chemical propulsion, rudimentary warfare. Now, that same species had crippled an armada without revealing a single fleet of its own. Emergency meetings were called. Delegates from the core worlds demanded clarity. Some assumed the Empire was exaggerating failures to save face. Others whispered that humanity had secretly allied with unknown entities beyond mapped space. A few asked the question that no one wanted to hear aloud: what if this is just how humans are? Archived records of human behavior were unsealed. Wars fought over inches. Weapons engineered for maximum psychological damage. Soldiers trained not only to destroy, but to humiliate, to unnerve, to destabilize. Council analysts reviewed footage of human conflicts and came to a stark conclusion: humans didn't escalate. They adapted. And adaptation, when mixed with vengeance, made them unpredictable. Species who had once colonized peacefully began reviewing their Earth protocols. Trade envoys paused outbound communication. Exploration fleets rerouted. The diplomatic tone shifted from assumed superiority to cautious observation. A respected Centauri historian made a quiet address to the inner council. They do not seek domination. They respond to threats by ensuring the threat never returns. The Council's diplomatic branch attempted to open channels with Earth independently, bypassing the Empire. They sent messages cloaked in neutrality, praising Earth's resolve, proposing dialogue. Each one returned without comment. Humanity remained completely silent. Not a single global statement. No broadcast. No treaties. Just the continued degradation of the Empire's grip on Earth's orbit. The panic intensified when intercepted Empire logs revealed that sections of their own ships had been repurposed by human operatives. Alien vessels, now partially controlled by Earth tech, broadcast distorted warnings into deep space, fragmented messages in Terran dialects laced with data worms that infected even secure systems. Those who listened too long began to report hallucinations. Others described vivid dreams of being hunted, cornered, extinguished. The Empire's representatives, desperate to save face, blamed rogue elements. They claimed the loss of control was temporary, that Earth would be broken by week's end. But evidence mounted to the contrary. Dreadnoughts with scorched hulls drifted into view, crewless, systems erased. Life pods launched in random directions. The only survivors could barely speak, many reduced to shivering wrecks. They used the same phrase over and over, in translated fragments. They weren't fighting. They were teaching us fear. Galactic markets responded violently. Trade with imperial sectors plummeted. Insurance brokers refused coverage for any mission near Sol. Mercenary guilds withdrew contracts, stating no fee was worth confronting whatever the humans had unleashed. Even criminal syndicates, previously emboldened by war, blacklisted Terran space entirely. On lower worlds, whispers spread that Earth had summoned something ancient, an ancestral predator encoded in their evolution. Cultural myths around John began forming. Some believed he was a demon. Others said he wasn't real at all, just a human construct designed to cripple alien morale. But when psychological warfare works too well, truth becomes irrelevant. Perception dictates power. And the perception now was simple: humans were not prey. They were the storm. The Council faced a choice: publicly condemn Earth and risk provoking them further, or remain quiet and let the Empire collapse under its own arrogance. They chose the latter. A private directive was issued: avoid engaging Terrans directly, contain the spread of panic, and above all, do not provoke retaliation. In an off-record discussion among Council elders, a quiet question arose. If this was their response to a demand, what happens if they feel truly threatened? No one answered. Deep within the Empire's last functioning command vessel, General Vorthax stood alone. The throne room, once vibrant with activity, lay in disrepair. Officers no longer reported in. Communications echoed with static. Entire divisions had stopped responding. Sensors failed to track movements that weren't supposed to exist. He had tried everything: reinforcements, realignment of protocols, even broadcasted surrender offers masked as revised terms. None were answered. Earth remained silent, not out of weakness, but because silence had become their most effective weapon. Then came the breach. It didn't begin with explosions or alarms. Systems went dark without damage. Internal airlocks cycled unprompted. Artificial gravity staggered. Surveillance footage cut mid-frame. All his failsafes were voided without violence. Vorthax reached for his sidearm, hand trembling, a gesture symbolic, not tactical. For the first time in his centuries of command, fear gripped him completely. Not fear of defeat. Fear of irrelevance. Of knowing that in this war, he had never been a participant, only a lesson. The door opened without noise. He saw the figure, featureless under matte armor, eyes shielded, steps silent. No insignia. No demand. Just presence. That alone was enough. Vorthax raised his weapon but didn't fire. The weight of inevitability crushed defiance before it could surface. He didn't ask who the intruder was. He already knew. John didn't speak. He didn't need to. He approached, stepped into the fading glow of the chamber, and let the silence stretch long enough for the message to settle in. The general, once feared across dozens of systems, sank to one knee, not out of strategy, but instinct. The weapon used was unremarkable. A standard human sidearm, silenced. One shot. No drama. No monologue. The Empire's last command authority collapsed without fanfare. Not a martyr. Not a hero. Just another consequence. Moments later, every remaining Empire ship received the same encrypted signal. A recording, brief, undistorted, unmistakably human. You started this with arrogance. We end it with clarity. There will be no tribute. No surrender. No diplomacy. Come back again, and you won't just lose fleets. You'll lose memory. The broadcast wasn't traced to any known source. It played once. That was enough. Across the galaxy, silence followed. Not imposed, earned. Planets previously under Empire rule began revolting, emboldened not by victory, but by the proof that those who seemed untouchable could be broken. The Empire's name no longer commanded fear. Now, it drew skepticism. Its banners, once symbols of might, were lowered in quiet shame. Humanity never declared victory. They never responded to congratulatory messages. No speeches. No monuments. Only the continued, steady rebuilding of their own world. While other civilizations pondered what force could do what Earth had done, humans moved on. They didn't seek status. They never asked to be feared. But when tested, they responded with surgical finality. The Galactic Council, having monitored everything, issued a non-binding resolution: no member state shall engage Earth militarily or politically without unanimous approval. The vote passed instantly. Not out of policy, but survival. On planets far removed from the conflict, new generations were taught a revised version of the war. One where Earth wasn't the victim, or even the underdog, but the apex species that responded not with diplomacy, but with eradication of hierarchy. Legends formed around the man in gray, his methods, his silence, and his final act. John didn't return to accolades. His name was never spoken. His face never revealed. What remained was the certainty that he had done what he was created to do, not for glory, but necessity. A countermeasure, activated and withdrawn. And in the vacuum left behind, empires whispered to each other in regret, warning one another of the world they once thought weak. A world that didn't ask questions. A world that didn't kneel. A world that, when pushed, didn't hesitate to reply with the only phrase carved into the deepest memory banks of a shattered fleet. "We'll kill you, idiots."